Well, good morning, church. Good to see you this morning. This is, or should I say, good morning, 10 o'clock service. The early risers. Amen. So anyway, it's a joy this morning to be here and to have our friend with us. Barry's no stranger to Living Waters Church. Barry's been coming here over the years. In fact, probably every year, maybe once or twice a year. And he's going to come and share this morning. I meant to say to you, Barry, that because this service has been streamed, I want to thank everybody who's joining us online also. You're going to be limited to how far you can run about this platform. You've disappeared off camera.
I'm staying still.
I've usually got a little pulpit in front of me that keeps me in tow, but we don't have that this morning. So come on, let's hear it for Barry as he comes to share this morning.
Cheers, mate. Nice to see you. Or should I say, nice to meet us. Nice. If you'd been sat in that floodlit room in Dave the Speed Freak's flat, you'd have seen the scars for yourself. Dave the Speed Freak was one of the original, old-school Mancunian clubbers. You should have seen him. He was thin, he had false teeth in, and he dressed like Starsky in Starsky and Hutch. Remember Starsky and Hutch? It was a Saturday night, and I was in my local pub in town. It was just before closing time, and Dave came over. Barry, do you fancy coming back to mine to do some speed? Back then, I was injecting heroin and speed loads of times every day, so this was a no-brainer. I'd never been to Dave's before, but I knew that he lived in Beswick, which is just outside town. So we got in my car, and we drove to Beswick. When we got there, he said, right, stop here. I live just over there. So I stopped, and we pulled up in the middle of Fort Beswick. Fort Beswick was a massive concrete streets-in-the-sky housing estate that they built in the 60s. But now, it was all derelict. All the windows were boarded over. There was no lights on anywhere. There was graffiti all over the place. I thought, he can't live on there. He said, come with me. So we got out of the car, and I followed him into one of these dark staircases into this big block of flats. It was pitch black. I could hardly see. I'm thinking, where's he taking me? We walked up all these stairs right to the top floor. Then we walked down this walkway past all these front doors to near the end. He stops, gets the key out, and puts it in a door and opens it. This is where he lived. We walk in, he turns the light on. This was the only light on the estate. I said, Dave, why are you the only one living here? He said, they're knocking it all down, and I've told them I'm not going anywhere. He takes me into this little room. Wait here, Basil, won't be a minute. He goes out, comes back in, and he got changed. Now he's wearing a crassy suit, a white skull cap on the back of his head, and orange slippers. He got dressed up for the occasion. We got the speed ready. He said, come on, let's go in here. So he takes me into this other room, his living room. You should have seen it. All it had in it was a small settee and a big executive office chair that was slap bang in the middle of the room with a massive spotlight hanging over it. I sit on the settee and he sits on the chair. He then reaches down to the side of him, finds the switch and flicks it, and that spotlight lit up the room and the rest of Fort Beswick. You should have seen his face. He looked like a floodlit Jack Nicholson in that classic horror film, The Shining, wearing a skull cap. Here's Johnny. He took his speed and I took mine. And that spotlight was so bright, man. I'll never forget looking at my arms and the backs of my hands and seeing all the scars that were there through injecting loads. Some are still there. I see these now, though, as my battle scars. I don't know what happened to Dave or how long he ended up staying on Fort Beswick for, but I do know that going back to that floodlit room in Dave the Speed Freak's flat reminds me of my battle scars. The online dictionary said a battle scar is a wound suffered from battle. Do you know, it's not just me who's got battle scars, is it? No, we've all got them of one kind or another, because we've all been in some sort of battle that's left us with a scar. Some are visible and some aren't. Raise your hand if you know what I mean. So what can we learn from our battle scars? Here are 4 lessons for you to walk away with. Number 1. Battle scars prove that you can stay standing. If you could have met Jeff, you'd have liked him. Jeff was mixed race. He had really short hair and a neat handlebar moustache. He was a bit of a villain, and he worked as a doorman at a nightclub in my side called the Reno. Jeff was 11 years older than me. He'd been on the scene for years, so I knew who he was. Most people did. He was well respected. And I bumped into him quite a few times when I was out and about, so he kind of knew of me, but we didn't really get to know each other until we did a jail sentence together. That's when we became really good friends. We first started getting friendly when we were on remand in Strangeways. Back in those days, you got 1 shower a week. Some of you remember? One time, I went down to get my shower, and Jeff was there. And he had his towel wrapped around his waist. We got chatting, then I clocked his stomach. There was a massive chunk of it missing. Jeff had broad shoulders and a bit of a pigeon chest and a tight stomach. So when he walked with his chest out in his belly, and I didn't know that this was one of the reasons why. You should have seen it. It was full of twisted scars. Jeff, how did you get them? He said, I got on when I was working on the door at the Reno. I got into a battle one night outside with a load of white kids, and one of them smashed a pint pot and rammed it into my stomach and twisted it. And then he said, I could hardly keep myself up. But then this guy stepped in to help me out. So the lads legged it. I didn't bother going to hospital as bad as it was because I didn't want to get the police involved. So I just stitched it and tied it up the best I could. And it left me like this with all these scars. These were just battle scars. Battle scars that proved he'd stayed standing. See, battle scars prove that you can stay standing. What about you? Are you in some kind of battle right now and you feel as if you can't keep yourself up? Listen, God can step in to help you out, same as that guy did with Jeff. Jesus is God with skin on. He died on the cross, he rose again, and then he went to the place where his followers were. And a guy in the Bible called John tells us that he said to them, look at the scars on my hands. Look at the scars on my side. He showed them his scars, his battle scars. And they didn't need to be in a floodlit room to see them. They looked and they saw them firsthand. Imagine that. And these battle scars proved to them that he'd stayed standing. Listen, if he can stay standing after that battle on the cross, he can help you stay standing in your battles. Whatever it is you're battling with, he can get you out the other side. So you've got battle scars that prove you've stayed standing, but you need to let God step in to help you out. That's up to you. Going back to that floodlit room, in Dave, this speed freaks flat reminds me of my battle scars. Battle scars prove that you can stay standing. And number 2, battle scars can stop you going back to the fight. If you'd have been in a local prison with me that day when I was speaking, you'd have heard the lad ask the question at the end. Barry, what stops you going back to your old life? I said, well, quite a few things really, but one of them is my battle scars. Because when I think about how I got these, They stop me going back. See, battle scars can stop you going back to the fight. When I think about how I got my battle scars, just those left inside, I think about that time in our flat in Newham. I've been speeding off my head for months. I hadn't slept. You should have seen me. I was 3 stone wet through. And that was with my Beyond Borgfield tracksuit on. I just sit there making house music, using the bits of recording gear that I'd set up, with my head jammed between my 2 carnival-sized speakers that I'd made. Non-stop. If you'd lived in Newham, you'd have heard the bass line coming from my flat 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can see why I ended up in a mental health hospital. And then I think about the time when I thought the Iranian guy who lived above us was watching us through the crack where the wall meets the ceiling. He's spying on me. I know what I'm going to do. So I got a load of wood and I nailed it all the way around where the wall meets the ceiling, like a skirting board on the roof. Bang, 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 bang. Can't see me now. And then I think about the time when I got remanded in custody. I was saying to all the officers, boss, God's called me. I'm going to be a famous DJ. You can imagine what they were thinking. This guy's a nutter. They put me on the hospital wing. And then I think about that time in jail on the exercise yard. Instead of walking round with the lads, I just sit on the floor every day with my fingers touching, my legs crossed, and my head shaved bald, thinking I was Buddha. Nobody had come near me. Do you blame them? Now it was me that looked like Jack Nicholson in The Shining with a shaved bald head. Here's Barry, stay away from him. And these are just some of the times that come to mind. There were others. And it was these crazy drug-induced times that left with battle scars inside. Is it any wonder? I'm just grateful that I'm alive. And that my mind is functioning normally. Well, my wife might tell you different. And yeah, I've got battle scars in there, of course. But it's thinking about how I got these that stopped me going back. Listen, battle scars can stop you going back to the fight. What about your battle scars? Just flick the switch to put that bright spotlight on so you can see yours. They could be like mine. But it's more likely that they're not. Because you've been on a different journey and you've got yours from something on that. Listen, in whatever way you was left with yours, those that's been left inside of you somewhere, thinking about how you got them can stop you going back. See, battle scars can stop you going back to the fight. Maybe you keep going back. And your battle scars are like open wounds because you keep licking them. Listen, let God step in to help you out. Isaiah in the Bible said, do not dwell on the past. Listen, you don't have to keep going back. Because with God on your case, you can get to that place where your battle scars stop you going back to the fight. But you need to let God step in to help you out. Going back to that floodlit room in Dave the Speed Freak's flat reminds me of my battle scars. Battle scars prove you can stay standing. Battle scars can stop you going back to the fight. Number 3, battle scars can motivate you to move forward. Jackie's did. She told me, if you've been there, you'd have heard her. Jackie was a skinny, wiry-haired drug addict who was working as a sex worker on the streets. In fact, she read my book in prison. It just so happens I've got some of my books with me over there, just by chance. I've said this before here. We started a project in 2007 to give a copy of my autobiography, Once and Added, to every prisoner in the UK. We've sent 48,000 copies of that out to prisoners throughout the United Kingdom since then. For every one copy you buy, we send 2 into prisons for free. And there's some other bits on there. All the proceeds from that table. In fact, we've not sold much this year because I've only done a handful of events since lockdown, the beginning of lockdown. But anyway, Jackie got attacked one night when she was out working. She said, I got picked up by this Polish guy in a car, and he took me to an house that was about 5 minutes away. When we got there, we walked in and walked into the living room, and there were 2 other blokes there. So I sat on the settee and lit a cig. But then they all started talking in Polish, and it made me feel dead uneasy. I thought, sack this, I'm off. So I got up, went to the front door to get out, and it was locked. He'd locked me in. The next minute, the 3 guys came rushing out, grabbed hold of me, and dragged me back into the room. You can guess what happened next. It was horrible. And then she said, what they did to me that night, Barry, left me with battle scars. I had so much hurt inside after what they'd done. But that was it for me, though. Enough was enough. So I went into a rehab, and that's when God stepped in to help me out. You see, it's as if a bright spotlight came on, and she saw her battle scars, which motivated her to move forward. Listen, battle scars can motivate you to move forward. What about you and yours? Is this the time for you to say, enough is enough, so that you can move on? There was a guy who was around in Bible times called Paul. He had loads of battle scars. He'd been there. He'd worn the T-shirt. He said, forget what's behind and reach forward. Listen, you need to decide to move on. Your battle scars can motivate you to move forward. Jackie's did. But are you ready to say, enough is enough, and to let God step in to help you out? That choice is yours. Going back to that floodlit room in Dave the Speed Freaks flat reminds me of my battle scars. Battle scars prove you can stay standing. Battle scars can stop you going back to the fight. Battle scars can motivate you to move forward. And number 4, battle scars can prompt you to take a better route. Once I had an MG Mini Metro. Raise your hand if you remember Mini Metros. Well, mine wasn't just a Mini Metro. Mine was a MG Mini Metro. You should have seen it. It was lime green on the outside, bright red on the inside. It had polished alloy wide wheels. It had a small racing style steering wheel. And it had a sports big bore exhaust. I'd ripped through our estate, blasting out tunes, turning heads. You can imagine I looked like a cross between Smeagol and Vin Diesel in Fast and Furious. Early hours one morning, 7 of us took a load of magic mushrooms because it was mushy season. And we piled into my MG Mini Metro, and we set off down the road to find a rave. We were following a searchlight that we'd seen in the sky from my flat. Do you remember seeing, some of you will remember seeing those searchlights in the sky from those original raves? Well, we set off to find a rave following a searchlight. I got on the motorway, then after a bit of thought, there's the rave, it's over there. So I came off the next turning, got onto this road, drives down this road, but it wasn't there. I got onto this other road, drives down that, it still wasn't there. I got onto this other road, drives all the way to the top of that one, still nothing. 3 hours later, I'm still driving down these little roads. I looked up to the sky for the searchlight, and it was dead faint. We were miles away from the rave. I said, guys, We've taken the wrong route. That journey in my MG Mini Metro mirrors my life. I'd taken the wrong route. I was on it for 15 years. And then one day, my battle scars, those outside, prompted me to take a better route. If you'd been there, you'd have seen how it happened. I got invited to church, so I went. I remember being sat there, they started banging tambourines and waving flags around. I'm thinking, I came in here to get away from people who are on drugs. Then the guy gets up to speak. After his spiel, he said, if you want to be prayed for anything, come to the front. So I went to the front, and I got prayed for. And he had a light bulb moment. That's when God stepped in to help me out. Remember walking home, walked through the front door of my little flat, into my bedroom. I took my jacket off and rolled my sleeves up. I remember seeing all my battle scars. And I held my arms towards the sky, believing that God was up there somewhere. And I said, God, you're alive. I don't want to live my life this way anymore. I want to live my life a different way. I want to live my life your way. You see, on that day, the switch was flicked. That bright spotlight came on. Then my battle scars prompted me to take a better route. Listen, battle scars can prompt you to take a better route. What about your journey? Have you taken a wrong route? Whatever kind of wrong route that might be for you. Or it could be that you've not taken a wrong route, but you want to be on a better route than the one you're on now. Listen, 2,000 years ago, 2,000 miles away, God became a man. His name is Jesus. He lived on this earth and he was tempted just like you and me. But he resisted. Then at the age of 33, he allowed himself to be nailed to a cross. He died on that cross to pay the price for your faults. He did. For your flaws and for all your failures. He died on that cross to wipe your slate clean. And he died on that cross so that you can take a better route. There's a proverb in the Bible that says, when you submit to God, he makes your path straight. But you need to give God consent to come in so that he can step in to help you out. Listen, if God was a burglar, he'd wait for it to go dark and he'd come and he'd try and kick in the back door of your life. If he couldn't kick in the back door of your life, he'd try and kick in the side door of your life. If he couldn't kick in the doors, he'd try and jemmy in through the windows. That's if God was a burglar, but he's not. The legal entry to my house at home is the front door. You see, God will only ever come in through the legal entry, the front door. The front door to a life is your will. And this is what he says in his instruction book, the Bible. I stand at the door and knock. If anybody hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in. You see, he'll never try to force his way in. He stands and he knocks and he waits for you to open the door. He waits for you to give him consent to come in. And when you give him consent to come in, he steps in to help you out. Your battle scars can prompt you to take a better route. But are you ready to let God step in to help you out? That's up to you. What are you going to do? I'm going to land this by taking us to where we started. That night, when I was in my local pub in town, Dave invited me back to his. When we got there, he got changed. We got the speed ready. Then we went into his living room. I sat on the settee. He sits on the chair. He then reaches down to the side of him, finds a switch, and flicks it. And that bright spotlight came on. And I'll never forget looking at my arms and the backs of my hands and seeing all the scars that were there through injecting loads. Now, these are my battle scars. But it's not just me who's got battle scars, is it? We've all got them of some sort or another. Please stand. No going outside for a smoke just yet. A few more minutes. I'm going to pray a prayer. Because right now, God is stood outside your life. He is. He stood outside. And he's waiting to step in to help you out. But he needs your consent. So I'm going to pray a prayer, and I'm going to invite two groups of people to pray this prayer with me. The first group are those people, you have never prayed a prayer before where you've given God consent to come in. It could be that you're watching online, and you've never prayed a prayer. You've never given God consent to come in. You're here. You've never prayed a prayer. You've never given God consent to come in. You may have prayed a crisis prayer. God, give me bail. I've prayed tons of those. I know Michael has as well, but we never got bail. It never worked. This isn't a crisis prayer. And there's nothing wrong with crisis prayers, by the way. But this isn't a crisis prayer. This is you making a decision to give God consent to come in through the front door of your life, your legal entry. If you've never prayed a prayer before, to do that, pray this prayer. And the second group of those people, you have prayed a prayer at some point in the past, but you know that right now you're not cutting it. There's no condemnation for you. It's clear about that in the Bible, but pray this prayer to get back on track. So, that's the two groups. The rest of you, you make up the third group. You're going to pray to encourage the first group and the second group. Are we ready? Online and in-house, are we ready? Let's pray this prayer together. All three groups. Dear God, I come to you today and I admit that I'm not perfect. God, I ask that you forgive me for all my faults, for all my flaws, and for all my failures. God, I ask that you wipe my slate clean, because right now I'm opening my door and I'm asking you to step in to help me out. And I'm saying, God, from this point on, I want to move forward and I want to take a better route. While our heads are still bowed in this room, and if you're watching, if you've prayed that prayer, you're part of the first group or the second group. Can you raise your hand so I can see it? We've got one. Anybody else? 2, 3, 4. Put your hands down. There might be a few more of you who's prayed that prayer. You're part of the first group or the second group. I'll give you a few more seconds just to raise your hand as I count down. 5 extra seconds. Anybody else? 5. Another one here. Anybody else? 4. Anybody else? 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'm going to count to 3. And if you're part of the first group, if you've prayed that prayer for the first time, if you've prayed it for the second time, don't move, because there's not room in the back. We've got to keep it all nice and safe. But if you've prayed that prayer for the first time, I'm going to count to 3. On the point of 3, you're going to leave your seats and you're going to go through that door over there. We've brought some packs with us. I brought some packs with me. We want to give you a DVD, want to give you a booklet, and someone's going to chat with you just for a few minutes. Are we ready? On the point of 3, if you're part of the first group, you're going to leave your seats and you're going to go over to that door. 1, 2, 3. You go now. Thank you very much. You give them a round of applause. Thank you very much. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks, Barry. It's always a joy for you to come to share. And just because you've not went through the back in any way, shape or form, it doesn't mean we've not prayed that prayer in our hearts and allowed God to touch us. And maybe today is the moment for you that can change everything. Let's just bow our heads and pray today. Father, we thank you for your presence here. We thank you for every person who's gathered in this place. Those who have joined online and are at the sound of your voice, as Barry has shared, have opened up their hearts in some way. You have spoken. You have brought encouragement, challenge, inspiration, information. So we thank you for the responses, but we thank you for your word that's went forth and is in our hearts, in our minds, in our lives. And help us to find ways to work that out in this week that lies ahead. So we thank you for your presence, the promise of your presence. In Jesus' name. Come on, all God's people says. Amen. Well, God bless you guys. 10 o'clock service. You could help us greatly by kind of just leaving the building in an orderly fashion through the same exit so we can sanitize and get ready for the 11:15. Thanks for being here. We're here on a Wednesday night at 7:30 to 8:30. Please feel free to join with us in any of the services.